What's up everyone, Cyrus here. Today I'm going to be going over some homebrew spells for D&D 5e. Before we get started, some of these were made by me, some of these were made by others, altered by me, all that sort of stuff. So for the stuff that wasn't me, there's a link to the text document for the spells in the description. At the bottom of that, everyone who I borrowed from. Make sure you go out and give them some support. Starting off with the Lewd Grasp, a conjuration cantrip. Lets you teleport an item someone's trying to pick up somewhere else. Pretty niche, but when it shows up, it'll be helpful. Teleporting the MacGuffin away, getting that magic item first, you name it. Next up is a time-bending cantrip for wizards. This one allows you to rapidly accelerate aging over an hour. This one can be helpful in the right situations. It's also extremely flavorful for anyone going for that timey vibe. My favorite of the 4 cantrips on here, Gravecraft. There's Druidcraft, Prestidigitation, Thaumaturgy, that cover the basic everyday functions that you'd expect. Gravecraft is a more necromantic twist on that, allowing you to manipulate corpses ever so slightly. Mindrend is a nice little cantrip that functions similar to the other damage cantrips, but it's a little bit more effective on charmed and frightened creatures, giving them a harder time saving. While it's a little bit less damage than the other cantrips of these classes, it does come with intelligence saving throws, which are normally pretty low. A little bit of variety. Moving on to the first level spells, we have one that's useful for those who like to utilize conditions. Fester is a first level spell similarly to Magic Missile that automatically does damage, but only if certain conditions are present. However, they don't let you remake a save as a result of taking damage from the spell, making it particularly useful for those utilizing those sorts of spells and abilities. And now we have Halt, a reaction first level spell that lets you slow down a target as they're attempting to move, halving their speed till the end of their turn. Great way to, in a pinch, keep those people from rushing down onto you. Next up, and last for first level spells, is Spark Memory. Just a neat little spell that lets you add your spellcasting bonus to 1 intelligence ability check. It's got some uses if you're investigating, if you're trying to solve a puzzle box, or anything of the sort. You might not want it all the time, but it's nice to have it and prepare it when you need it. Next up, and first on second levels, is Aegis of the Ally. I've been calling it Aegis, and found out that's not right. Still sounds weird. This one, as a bonus action, lets you put up a protective field to use your reaction to reduce damage. Great for paladins who will be up front in the middle of the thick of combat, and clerics who will be back a little supporting. Next up, Harmonic Spear. Pretty simple. You deal damage to yourself, which you can choose to have ignore resistances and immunities, transfer it into energy, and make an attack roll. Triple damage on a hit, 7 times on a crit. Risky, but useful when it hits. Next up is Stimulant, a nice little artificer-only way to power up your allies' cantrips. And particularly good if you've got someone like a warlock who's going to be relying on them pretty frequently for damage. Next up, we got Telepathic Disruption. And while this is pretty useful as a lower level way to block out telepathic eavesdroppers, it also functions very nicely as a DM world building spell to give a reason to stop telepathy in a certain area without mordenkaning the whole entire area. Drain Potential. This one might be my favorite, also requires a little bit of explaining. This one makes everyone in a certain radius roll a d20. And then the caster gets to pick one die and take it for themselves. Anytime that target, the one who had their d20 taken, rolls that number, they have to re-roll until they get something different. They also take a little bit of damage. One other little perk is you get to save that d20 that you took for later, and whenever you use it, you end the spell. Coming up next, we've got a Druid Ranger spell, the Good Bush. It's like a higher level Good berry, except you leave a nice non-magical berry bush behind when you're done. In my opinion, sorcerers should have the most unique spells, since they're the most unique in terms of where they draw strength from. Varies greatly within the class. Unfortunately, they only have Chaos Bolt Raw, and Chaos Bolt is first level, so anyone can grab it with Magic Initiate. This sorcerer unique spell is third level, and Spellbind is a bit more interesting. You get to flavor it however you want, the binding, the vitality to your own means of spellcasting, choosing what damage represents that, and if the target fails, they take some damage. Additionally, anytime you cast any other spells, or put sorcery points into spells, you deal more and more damage. The target has chances to avoid certain types of damage, but the spell persists. It's very flavorful and very fun to use in-game. Next up is Infectious Bolt, Artificers and Rangers. A little love for the half-casters. They load up a poison-riddled bolt, and if they hit their attack, they get a chance to poison the target as well. Nothing too fancy, but certainly a solid choice. What if we took the object and pushed it into the future? Time Capsule pretty much does just that. You get to select a duration for up to 10 days, send the object off into the future, and come get it when it's done. Entropy. Focusing the natural decay of all things into a small area, you fuck bitches up. This one is particularly debuffing, having speed, putting disadvantage on dexterity ability checks, the works. It's fun, and it's a great way to get those more nimble enemies and assassins out of the way. Restore Youth, pretty simple. Makes you look younger. Not super useful in game, but it's great flavorfully to be able to de-age yourself. Also, makes for some fun world building prospects for DMs. And finally hitting 5th level spells, we have Acid Rain. Funnily enough, 5e doesn't have any 5th or 6th level acid spells. Not even spells that just give you a choice of acid damage. This one fixes that in a pretty thematic way. Dealing 68 acid damage in a cylinder as Acid Rain falls. One other fun little fact. Only one spell references oozes, and it's in conjunction with fiends. And doesn't really have any particular effects on them other than just harder to make the save. This one also makes it harder for oozes to make the save. And they can't regain hit points until the start of its next turn, when they're damaged by this spell. Which may not come up all that often, but is a nice flavorful little way to represent rain and ooze. Curse of Aging. 5e doesn't have a lot of curses. This one's pretty neat. You triple the speed at which an enemy ages. If you capture an Aarakocra, you can make them fear for their life. Great torture spell. Just make sure you can remove curses, so you're not like a war criminal. One of my favorite spells on here, Delay Fate. It lets you create a ward that delays damage until the end of the spell. And while it can be dangerous if you take too much damage, you will outright die upon the spell's completion. It's also very thematic in letting one of your allies keep up and keep fighting. If you're making an escape and they're blocking the exit, this is the spell you want to drop to really fulfill that fantasy of fending off an army all on your own to save your allies. Mass Sending. This is basically sending to. And now you can make spam calls to way more people than you could before. Or everyone within 1 mile of you if you need to get a quick message out to everyone nearby. Or you can just be a menace with it. That's what I would do. The final spell on this list is Last Gasp. And it's the only 6th level spell. You mark a creature, and when they die, they go kaboom. Pretty fun, great for a necromancer, and all around, who doesn't want to make giant things explode? While a few of these were entirely my idea, or at least I didn't read them anywhere else first, some of them I did pull from other creators. I've got a list of those creators at the bottom of the page. Make sure you check it out. Send them a thank you from me. And see y'all around.